onto the 6 Goswamis, namely Sri Sanatan Goswami, Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, and Sri Gopala Bhatta Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus, they are honored all over the 3 worlds, and they are worth taking shelter of because they are absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha and Krishna. Shri Shri Sad Goswami Astaka, Srinivasacharya, verse 2. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yata Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutan Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Satadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivashadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschcha Deshatarine Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So we shall continue. Let's see who else has joined us. Devi Gaurangi Mataji, Hare Krishna. Chandrika Mataji, Hare Krishna. And who else have we got? I can't see at the bottom. Satyatej Prabhu, is that you?
Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, nice to have you with us, Satyatej Prabhu. You doing okay?
Yes, Prabhu, yes, I was driving back to home, then so I'll read everything with that again.
Okay, no problem.
Glad to be joined back.
Hare Krishna. So, yeah. So just a very quick recap. We are now studying chapter number 9 of our Nectar of Devotion. We got to the point of sadhana bhakti. And there are many chapters that cover sadhana bhakti. And in essence, Srila Rupa Goswami is explaining the 64 items of regulative devotional service. During the week, I was listening to one class by Srila Prabhupada. And in the class, Srila Prabhupada was saying, the essence of devotional service is to want to please Krishna, where the devotee makes all sorts of endeavors to make Krishna comfortable, to make Krishna happy, and to make Krishna, to please Krishna. That is the essence of devotional service. So when I was reflecting on those statements made by Prabhupada, I was thinking how nicely Srila Rupa Goswami has given us 64 items. So many ways by which we can make Krishna comfortable, by which we can please Krishna, by which we can make Krishna happy. So it's so important that we pay attention to all of the 64 items. Because sometimes we have the tendency to think, but this statement, we should make Krishna happy, we should make Krishna comfortable, we should please Krishna. But in a practical sense, how do we do this? On a minute to minute, hour by hour, day to day, year by year, part of our lives. And when I was hearing these statements by Srila Prabhupada in his lecture, I was thinking about our study of Nectar of Devotion. How every one of the 64 items we are studying, the ones we've been studying so far, the 27, all of them are pleasing to Krishna. So in one sense, there are so many ways by which we can make Krishna happy, by which we can make Krishna comfortable, by ways which we can please Krishna. So it's a very important chapter from that perspective. And the more of it we can follow, the more of it we can understand, the more of it we can be conscious of, then the opportunities to serve Krishna, it just becomes so much broader, so much wider. There's just so many ways. And Srila Rupa Goswami says, there are so many ways that Sanatana Goswami is explained in the Hari Bhakti Vilas. But he's going to choose 64. Actually, he chooses 60 and he repeats 4. But that by itself is just so numerous. So I thought I would just share that realization with you. So we've been discussing these 64, and currently what we are doing, firstly in chapters, the earlier chapters, we just went through the items, the 64, we listed them out, and now we are going through item by item, and we're listening to Srila Rupa Goswami provide the praman, the evidence from the Shastra, which supports each of the 64 items which are set out in these chapters of Nectar of Devotion. And it's extremely interesting how Srila Rupa Goswami is giving the evidence. And just by reading these evidences from the various Shastras, we become convinced about these principles. And we should, actually, our consciousness should evolve to the point where we would think, yes, I'm followed. Because the more convinced one is, the stronger one's faith is. And the stronger one's faith is, then the more better one can apply these principles of devotional service. So last week we stopped at following the deity, and today we shall continue with the next items. Maybe I just made some slides till item number 31, but we'll see how we're going, and we'll take it from there. Any questions or comments from anyone before we progress? Is everyone good? All right. So we'll move on to item number 28. And item number 28, Srila Rupa Goswami says, Stane gatihi. Stanam tirtam griham chasyat tatra tirta gatir yatha. Going to the places of the Lord. That's number 28. So stanam means tirtha or temple. First going to the tirtha is illustrated. But let's read firstly how Srila Prabhupada has phrased this in his summary study of the Nectar of Devotion before we look at the actual verses from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So would anyone like to read? Any volunteers to start off today?
I'll read it, Prabhu.
Yes, please. Thanks, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu.
It is stated in the Puranas, persons who attempt to visit the holy places of pilgrimage like Vrindavan, Mathura, or Dwarka are actually glorified. By such traveling activities, they can pass over the desert of material existence. In the Hari Bhakti Sudhodhaya, there is a statement about the benefit of visiting the temples of Lord Krishna. As we have explained previously, in Vrindavan, Mathura, and Dwarka, the system is that all the devotees take advantage of visiting various temples situated in those holy places. It is stated in the Hari Bhakti Sudhodhaya, persons who are impelled by pure devotional service in Krishna consciousness and who therefore go to see the deities of Vishnu in the temple will surely get relief from entering again into the prison house of a mother's womb. The conditioned soul forgets the trouble of living within the mother's womb during birth, but it is a very painful and terrible experience. In order to make an escape from this material condition, one is advised to visit a temple of Vishnu with devotional consciousness. Then one can very easily get out of a miserable condition of material birth.
Thank you, Prabhu. So here we see how important it is to go on tirtha, places of pilgrimage. So let me read the actual verses from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and then we can have some further discussion on this point. So there's another verse quoted, and Prabhupada paraphrases those. Samsaramaru kantara nishtara karana shamo slagyo tav eva charano ya aris tirtha gamino. Translation. In another Purana it is said, the 2 feet which go to the tirtha of the Lord are praiseworthy since they enable one to cross over the dangerous desert of samsara. So this is the verse, the actual verse from the Hari Bhakti Sudhodhaya, which Prabhupada has quoted. The intelligent person who enters the temple of Vishnu with devotion to see the Lord does not again enter the prison of a mother's womb. So there's two verses that are quoted here. So this is very, very important to want to go to the places, and there are 3 places mentioned here: is Vrindavan, Mathura, or Dwarka. In the Vaishnav culture, 3 holy places are mentioned. It's Shri Vrindavan Dham, Shri Navadvip Dham, and Shri Jagannath Puri Dham. Those are the main places, and also it's mentioned Mathura or Dwarka. It's all the pastimes of Lord Krishna's. And we see in, we should make it our goal to want to visit these places regularly. Even if one cannot physically go there, mentally we can go. And at the moment, I'm just making up a bucket list. And every time I'm reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, especially Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is now going in the Madhya Leela to his tour of South India. And, there's always descriptions. Recently on Sunday, Sutapa Prabhu and I were talking, and he was saying how the other night, Saturday night, he couldn't sleep. And he was plotting from Google Earth. I'm not sure if you got this map. This app is called Google Earth. You can actually go and plot Earth. And he was tracing Chaitanya Mahaprabhu South Indian tour. And I was telling him the same night, I was going again and again and looking on this app called Kayak, how to go to Vishakhapatnam. Because now we're reading Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's tour of South India, how he went to Kurmashetra, and from Kurmashetra he went to the temple of Varaha Nrsimha, and then from Varaha Nrsimha he went to the banks of the river Godavari in a place called Vijayanagar, and there he met Ramananda Rai. So all of these places of pilgrimage, and then Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Prabhu, he gave a class on Madhvacharya and he was explaining about Udupi temple. And then you hear today about the pastimes of Sri Ramanuja Acharya. And then his pastimes with Lord Ranganath. So there are all so many beautiful places of pilgrimage. And Brenda Devi and I were talking the other day and we were thinking, you know, when we just think about so many places we can go to in India, then you never think of Thailand, you never think of Maldives, you never think of USA or any place in Europe. You just want to think about how to go to these holy places of pilgrimage. And here it is so nicely being described when we go to see. Here it is explained that how these places of pilgrimage, this is where we find the deities of Lord Krishna or deities of Lord Vishnu. And here it is explained just like Srimad Bhagavatam explains that how before we take birth, we are caught up in the womb of the mother. And that condition, that situation is not very nice. You know, the baby is in a very curved position, in a sac, surrounded by amniotic fluid, and in there's little entities that sting one. It is for 9 months we're in that position, and it is such a horrible position that we always pray to Krishna. Krishna, please, I don't want to be in the situation again. 9 months in the womb of a mother. Please, I promise, when I take birth, I will not allow myself to find myself in another mother's womb. But this happens every lifetime, and there's been countless lifetimes. So yet he's saying that one who goes to the temple of Lord Vishnu, one who sees the deity and takes darshan of the deity, and I think it's mentioned here with love. Yeah, sees the temple of Vishnu with devotion, goes to the temple with devotion, then one does not take birth again in the mother's womb. So it is so beneficial for one. But it's also said when we go to the holy places, we also go not only to see, but also to associate with the saintly persons there, to take their association, and so on. So this is definitely a wonderful position for us to take advantage and to go. I know Divyanam Prabhu is nice. He's taken up the service to arrange tours. This year he's arranged a tour for Vrindavan and Mayapur. And then early in the next year, he's going to Mayapur and Jagannath Puri. Then I told him that following that, he must arrange a tour for South India and trace the steps of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, all the places that he went. Any comments or questions or reflections on this point from anyone? Yes. So if there's nothing, I take it everyone's been to Vrindavan, Jagannath Puri, and Mayapur. Have any of you not been to these holy places yet?
I haven't been to these places, Prabhuji.
Okay.
Puri, I think.
We haven't been to Mayapur or Puri.
Mayapur. Okay. You haven't been to Mayapur or Puri?
No, but I'm hoping that Nishchintana Chaitanya Prabhu is organizing something this year. So
Uh-huh. Okay. That's nice. Yeah. It's wonderful to go to these holy places. At least we should have the desire to do it.
Puri is just so beautiful. It's just amazing. You'll want to swim in the water.
Yes, Indudumna Swami is now doing a tour of Orissa. I'm not sure if any of you are following his tour.
Yes, it's very nice, Prabhuji. Yes.
It's amazing the places he's going to at the moment. Fantastic. He's recently been to the place of the palace of Maharaj Prataparudra. And now we went to an island where Lord Jagannath used to go and hide when the Mughals would attack. So there's just so many places to go. So let's move on swiftly to the number 29. So 29 is, in one sense, is related to the previous ones, circumambulating the temple of Vishnu. Would anyone like to volunteer to read?
I can read, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Yes, please read.
Circumambulating the temple of Vishnu. It is said in the Hari Bhakta Sudodaya, a person who is circumambulating the deity of Vishnu can counteract the circumambulation of repeated birth and death in this material world. The conditioned soul is circumambulating through repeated births and deaths on account of his material existence, and this can be counteracted simply by circumambulating the deity in the temple. The Chaturmasya ceremony is observed during the 4 months of the rainy season in India, approximately July, August, September, and October, beginning from Shravana. During these 4 months, saintly persons who are accustomed to travel from one place to another to propagate Krishna consciousness remain at one place, usually a holy place of pilgrimage. During these times, there are certain special rules and regulations which are strictly followed. It is stated in the Skanda Purana that during this period, if someone circumambulates the temple of Vishnu at least 4 times, it is understood that he has traveled all over the universe. By such circumambulation, one is understood to have seen all the holy places where the Ganges water is flowing. And by following the regulative principles of Chaturmasya, one can very quickly be raised to the platform of devotional service. Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. So these are the verses from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Parikramo yatha tatraiva Vishnu pradakshini kuramyas tatra vartate punaha tad eva vartanam tasya purna nava vartate bhave. Circumambulation from Hari Bhakti Sudodai. If a person circumambulates Vishnu and returns to the same spot, that returning guarantees that he will not return to another birth. And then this is why Srila Prabhupada mentions Chaturmasya. And this is from the Skanda Purana. Skande cha Chaturmasya Mahatmye Chaturvaram Ramibhis Tat Jagat Saram Characharam Krantam Bhavati Viprakrya Tatirtha Gamanadikam. In the Skanda Purana, Chaturmasya Mahatmya, it is said, O best of the Brahmanas, those who circumambulate the Lord 4 times surpass the world of moving and non-moving creatures. This surpasses going to Tirthas. Srila Jiva Goswami comments, Chartu Varam means 4 times around Vishnu. Circumambulation of the deity is superior to visiting Tirthas because it more quickly produces devotion to the Lord than going to Tirthas. such as the Ganga. So that's an interesting statement by Srila Jiva Goswami, which in one sense exemplifies the whole act of circumambulation. Therefore, you see in many temples, there's this arrangement that allows one to go around the deity. I know in our temple, by which we grew up in, Shri Radharadhana temple in Durban, there's an arrangement that's almost like a pathway, a parikrama around the deities. Even in the Delhi temple, you can see it's like that. Many temples around the world, it's constructed in such a way that the pilgrims, they can get this opportunity to go how many times? 4 times around the deity. And here it is mentioned that if one does it during the Chaturmasya period, then one is considered to have traveled around the universe. And Srila Jiva Goswami is saying that this act of circumambulation is so important. It guarantees that one will not return to another birth. So like in our temple at Bhaktivedanta Manor, we do not have this parikram, but we have another opportunity. We have a path that goes around the temple. So sometimes, I know even in the morning during japa time, some devotees, they make it a habit of going 4 times around the temple. And in this way, one circumambulates Shishi Radha Gokulananda, Sisi Sitaram, Lakshman and Hanuman, and Shishi Gaur Nitai. So these are all statements that we can take on board, and any opportunity we have for spiritual advancement, we should do it. It's pleasing to Krishna. We should go around the deity of Lord Vishnu. And even when we go to different places and different temples, we should practice this. Even we see in various encounters, even in the Srimad Bhagavatam, when the Lord appears before some devotees, the devotees, they do parikrama of the Lord. They go around him 4 times. It is also a sign of respect, and one does it clockwise. One goes clockwise around the Lord. In Vrindavan temple, there's also that arrangement that one can go around Srila Prabhupada in this way. So it is very, very auspicious. And Prabhupada says, yeah, if one does it during the Chaturmasya month, and that's month Prabhupada writes in his purport, it normally runs from July to October. And if one does it during these months, then the benefit is even more pronounced. More pronounced. Okay, very interesting. Any questions, comments, or reflections?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare
So,
Krishna.
you know how we also circumambulate Vrinda Devi?
Yes.
Is that very equivalent to circumambulating the temple? Do you think? Because that's, you know, even at the Bhakti Vedanta, we do a circumambulation of where Vrinda Devi's garden is.
Yes, definitely. You know, when we are circumambulating, we chant Yani Kani Cha Papani Brahma Achari Kani Cha Tani Tani Pranasyanti Pradakshina Pade Pade. And anyone knows the translation of this verse?
Roughly every step I take, I hope my sins are destroyed.
Yes, even the sin of killing a Brahmana.
Brahman.
Yeah. So yes, certainly when one circumambulates the Tulsi Devi or the spiritual master, so much of advancement is made. So much of advancement is made. And unknowingly, if one does it, one makes so much of advancement. Yeah, definitely. So we should try to follow these principles wherever we can, both in our local temple and wherever we can, and certainly Tulsi Devi too. Yeah. Any other questions or comments, or shall we move on? Okay, let's move on. The next one is Archana. Okay, anyone would like to read?
I can read, Prabhuji.
Yes, fine, Prabhu, please do.
Archana. Archana means worship of the deity in the temple. By executing this process, one confirms himself to be not the body but a spirit soul. In the 10th canto, 81st chapter, verse 19 of Srimad Bhagavatam, it is told how Sudama, an intimate friend of Krishna, while going to the house of a Brahmana, murmured to himself, simply by worshipping Krishna, one can easily achieve all the results of heavenly opulence, liberation, supremacy over the planetary systems of the universe, all the opulences of this material world, and the mystic power of performing the yoga system. The events leading to Sudama's murmuring this statement are as follows. Shri Krishna had ordered his friend Sudama to go to a Brahmana's house and ask for some food. The Brahmanas were performing a great sacrifice, and Shri Krishna told Sudama to plead with them that he and Balram was feeling hungry and needed some food. When Sudama went there, the Brahmanas refused to offer anything, but the wives of the Brahmanas, upon hearing that Shri Krishna wanted some food stuff, immediately took many palatable dishes and went to offer them to Shri Krishna. In the Vishnu Rahasya, also it is stated, any person within this world who is engaged in the worship of Vishnu can very easily achieve the ever blissful kingdom of God, known as Vaikuntha Loka.
Thank you, Prabhu. Archana. So these are the verses from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which Prabhupada has just paraphrased. Ata Archanam Shuddhi Nyashadi Purvanga Karma Nirvaha Purvakam Archanam Tupacharanam Syan Mantre no Papa na Papadanam. Archanam means offering items with mantra after introductory activities such as Bhuta Shuddhi and Nyasa. So you can see in the translation there's this word Shuddhi, and Prabhupada also refers to it in his translation. So Srila Jiva Goswami has given some interesting commentary on these verses of Archana, and I thought it would be interesting for us just to read them also. So Shuddhi here refers to Bhuta Shuddhi, purification of the elements of the body. Nyasa refers to nyasa such as Matrika Nyasa. These and other actions, Purvanga Karma, are performed prior to offering of items such as lamp and flowers to the deity. Offering of items with mantra along with these preliminary activities is called Archana. So here we're getting a very interesting definition of what is Archana from Srila Jiva Goswami, which we shall discuss a bit more. Oh, what happened to my... Okay, yeah, all right, so there it is. So the other verse which is quoted here, and that's the 10th canto, and this is the pastime of Sudama, and Prabhupada talks about it begging for food. It's not, there's two Sudamas in Krishna's pastimes. You know, one is the Sakha and one is the friend of Krishna's. So this is a quotation from the 10th canto, 81st chapter, 19th verse. Worship of the lotus feet is the root cause of all the perfections a person can find in heaven, in liberation, in the subterranean regions, and on earth. Srila Jiva Goswami's commentary. In this verse, Archana is emphasized. This verse meaning the verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And it is thus mentioned as the Moolam, or route to glorify it in comparison to process other than bhakti. We'll just explain it, but just bear with me for now. However, the greatness of other angas of bhakti should be understood to be similar. If archana is absent, another anga of bhakti can be performed and fulfill the same function. The following verse shows the Lord as the source of all knowledge, and the next verse shows that the Lord should thus be worshipped in all circumstances. Kalena nashta pralaya vaniyam veda samjita mayado brahmane prokta dharmo yasyam mad atmakaha. By the influence of time, the transcendental sound of Vedic knowledge was lost at the time of annihilation. Therefore, when the subsequent creation took place, I spoke the Vedic knowledge to Brahma, because I myself am the righteous principles enunciated in the Vedas. Akama sarva kama va moksha kama udharadi trivena bhakti yogena yajate purusham param. This is a famous verse. Many of you may recognize, whether one is as full of vices or no vices. So the translation, just bear with me. Yeah, so the translation of that verse is, a person who has broader intelligence, whether he be full of material desires, free from material desires, or desiring liberation, must by all means worship the supreme whole, the personality of Godhead. Alternatively, another meaning can be found in the verse, unless a person worships the Lord, though engaged in other non-devotional processes, he cannot gain his material goals. It is the root cause of success for all processes. This is illustrated in the following verse. And again, we'll explain it. It's very interesting what Jiva Goswami is saying here, all in the context of worshipping the Lord. Mantratas tantratas chidram deshe kalaha vashtata sarvam karoti nischidram anusankirtanam tava. This again is another beautiful verse in the Bhagavatam, spoken by Shukracharya. There may be discrepancies in pronouncing the mantras and observing the regulative principles, and there may be discrepancies with regard to time, place, person, and paraphernalia. Nevertheless, when your Lord's holy name is chanted, everything becomes faultless. Then another verse from the Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 5th chapter, 2nd verse. Mukha bahura ru padhebhya purusha yash ramai saha chatvaro jagniri nire varna gunhai vipradaya pratak. Each of the four social orders headed by the Brahmanas was born through different combination of the modes of nature, from the face, arms, thighs, and feet of the Supreme Lord in his universal form. Thus, the four spiritual orders are also generated. Let me off, and this is finally quote, Srila Jiva Goswami quotes this from the 2nd canto of the Bhagavatam, 4th chapter, 17th verse. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the all-auspicious Lord Sri Krishna again and again, because the great learned sages, the great performers of charity, the great workers of distinction, the great philosophers and mystics, the great chanters of the Vedic hymns, and the great followers of Vedic principle cannot achieve any fruitful result without dedication of such great qualities to the service of the Lord. Now, I just want to backtrack because there's a few interesting points made here about Archana. Archana, in one simple sense, Prabhupada says, Archana means worship of the deity in the temple. Worship of the deity in the temple. So that's one definition of Archana. And the first verse quoted, and which is what Srila Prabhupada talks about, is worshiping the deity in the temple. And Prabhupada refers to the different activities, and Srila Jiva Goswami also talks about it. What are the essential meanings of worship in the temple? And Srila Jiva Goswami refers to the Shuddhis, Bhuta Shuddhi and Nyasa. Anyone knows what this means? Bhuta Shuddhi, and those that follow the Panchapad, the deity worship, Panchapradika. You all should know this. Anyone likes to say? Anyone who's done the deity worship course? What's Bhuta Shuddhi and Nyasa? Let's see, someone's written something here. Oh, okay. Devika Rangi Mataji. That's fine. I hope you can hear properly now. So these two activities of Bhuta Shuddhi and Nyasa, they are purificatory processes. Shuddhi means purification. So before one performs deity worship, one performs certain Shuddhis. There are Shuddhis to purify the mind, and then there's Nyasas to purify the mind and the body. And just, for our benefit, I'm not proposing we study the deity worship course, but in terms of Bhuta Shuddhi, normally there's 2 mantras we chant. I chant this every day before worshipping our Giriraj. And I'll just show you a quick video of what Bhuta Shuddhi really means. I hope you can find it. Yeah. So yeah, let me show you. This is a very simple and a nice explanation of Bhuta Shuddhi. So you'll pay attention to 2 mantras here. Those are the mantras we chant as part of Bhuta Shuddhi.
My name is Vanshika and I am attending deity worship course from Bhaktivedanta Gurukul and International School that is taken by Raghunath Das Prabhuji. And I learned a very beautiful thing in deity worship course, that is Bhuta Shuddhi. Do you know what Bhuta Shuddhi is? Bhuta Shuddhi means that I am by nature the eternal servant of Krishna. But because of my bad fortune, I have been inimical towards him from time immemorial. And thus I have identified myself with my body and continuously wandered in the cycle of birth and death in the material world, suffering the burning threefold measures. Now, as a result of unimaginable good fortune, my spiritual master Mercy has enabled me to know that I am Krishna's eternal servant, an insensible spiritual being completely apart from the gross and subtle body. And so by the order of my spiritual master, I have obtained the good fortune of serving his lotus feet and following in the footsteps, the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Shri Radhashyam. There is also a shloka in Bhuta Shuddhi, that is, Naham vipro na cha pratir, napi vaishyo na shudaro, naham varni na cha grhapati, navansthaye tirva. Kintu pradyo nikhil pramananda purnamritamudhe gopi bhatur pad kamlyo dasu dasu nidasahe. The shloka means that I am not a brahmana, I am not a kshatriya, I am not a vaishya or a shudra, nor I am a brahmachari, a householder, a vanaprastha or a sannyasi. I identify myself only as a servant of the servant of the servant of the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna. He is the maintainer of gopis. He is like an ocean of nectar, and he is the cause of universal transcendental bliss. He is always existing with brilliance. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
So dear devotees, these are the 2 mantras we chant, which forms Bhuta Shuddhi. And as if you've been listening, the essence of Bhuta Shuddhi before we do the puja is to connect us with who we really are. Like I am been circumambulating in this material world for many lifetimes, being inimical towards you, Krishna. But ultimately, I am your eternal servant. So one prays like this to the Lord, recognizing one's internal nature. That means before one worships the Lord, one shuts off, one disconnects oneself with being this material body. One goes internally, inward. And then one also chants this Naham Vipranacha Narapati mantra, which is spoken by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I am not a Brahmana. I am not a Vaishya, Shudra. I'm not a Grihastha, Brahmachari, or Sannyasi. But I am simply Gopi Partu Padakamalayo Dasa Dasa Anudasa. But I am simply the servant of the servant of the servant of the master of the Gopi, Sri Krishna. So that is Bhuta Shuddhi. And I'll just explain very quickly about Nyasa. These are just I'm not attempting to give any in-depth explanation.
Just quickly, Prabhu. Normally, Bhuta means ghost.
Well, that's Bhut. That's something else.
Bhuta means ghost.
That's another word. That's different from this. Different from this. Yeah. There's Bhuta. So this is the other one I just want to show you. So this is Nyasa. And this is from the deity worship course. So just because Srila Rupa Goswami mentioned it and Prabhupada also mentions it in his writing, I just want to familiarize yourselves at a high level of these two terms. So Nyasa refers to placing sounds or parts of mantras on various parts of the body. There are two types of Nyasa. One implies particles of sound, the alphabetical sounds, matrika, or the syllables found in the Gayatri mantras. And the other employs names of the Lord, his consorts, his energy and associates. The purpose of Nyasa is to purify and spiritualize the body. Whereas Bhuta Shuddhi in Vaidhi Bhakti, as we've explained in volume 1, chapter 1, simply produces a condition of bodily purity. Nyasa, through placing sound on the body, produces a condition of spirituality, making the body qualitatively like that of the Lord. Srila Rupa Goswami mentions that Nyasas are a characteristic element of Archana, deity worship, in the mode of Vaidhi Bhakti. In the section dealing with worship, two types of Nyasa are given. Kara Nyasa for the hands and Anga Nyasa for the body, both of which the Pujari may perform after worshipping his spiritual master and Lord Chaitanya and prior to worshipping Krishna. Nyasa is generally performed on the deity only during installation, when installing the deity into a God sacred pot or into a Vishesha Argya. The devotee may perform Nyasa much as he would like to himself. So these are just two terms I'm just explaining. If you ever study the deity worship course, you'll see these are different terms. The whole purpose here is purification and bringing us closer to our spiritual identity so that one could worship the Lord in a certain consciousness. And then going on to the second verse, where Srila Rupa Goswami gives quite a long explanation, and this is in relation to the verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. And here Srila Rupa Goswami, he gives different understandings or versions of how one can expand what Archana means. Archana means. And then he quotes various verses. The one I particularly like to talk about is this verse, Mantratas Tantratas Chidram Deshe Kalaha Vashtita Sarvam Karoti Nischidram Anusan Kirtanam Tava. So this basically says that there may be discrepancies in pronouncing the mantras, in observing regulative principles, and there may be discrepancies with regard to time, place, and circumstance, and paraphernalia. Nevertheless, when your Lord's holy name is chanted, everything becomes faultless. So this interesting verse is saying when we perform deity worship or any type of worship or any type of yagya, there are so many discrepancies. Firstly, there are many discrepancies in how we chant the mantras. It's very difficult in Kali Yuga, for even the Brahmanas to chant the mantras properly. There's so many discrepancies. Then there's discrepancies in regulative principles. There are so many regulative principles of worshipping. Then there's discrepancies into time, like one should worship the Lord during certain time. There's very specific regulations about place in which we should worship. There's so many regulations about the person, and there's so many regulations about the paraphernalia, how you should purify, what type of paraphernalia, what material it should be made up of, the type of water, so many. So this verse is saying there may be so many discrepancies in all of these different areas, but anusan sankirtanam tava. But when one chants the holy name of the Lord, everything becomes faultless. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada taught us in this Krishna consciousness movement, in everything we do, we always include Sankirtan, the chanting of the holy names. When you do initiation ceremony, after the initiation, we have kirtan. After worshipping the deity, we also do kirtan. Or while worshipping the deity, we do kirtan. So this beautiful verse from the Bhagavatam explains that even one had chanting to the holy name, that's the highest form of worshipping the Lord. And he also talks about, interestingly, another verse. He looks at it from another angle. This famous verse from the Bhagavatam, whether one is full of material desires, whether one has no material desires, whether one desires liberation, by all means, we should still worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Srila Jiva Goswami says, if we look at this conversely, if someone has got material desires, then one is a gross materialist. If that gross materialist fails to worship Krishna, there is no chance of them attaining any of their goals. So those are some interesting verses on Archana. It's almost 7 o'clock. I will stop here. I think this is number 30, isn't it? And we'll carry on from number 31 tomorrow. Are there any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna, Divya Gaurangi Mataji.
Sorry, Prabhuji, I was away for a while and also I had problem with volume. In case you called out my name, I wouldn't know for reading.
Okay, no problem.
Sorry, Prabhuji, is it possible for you to show the slide of the Nyasa verse that you mentioned?
Sure,
Thank you so much. The one previous to this, was there a verse? So, it is 12137. Is this Prabhuji Bhagavatam?
For
1.2.137. What is the reference?
let's see, where is it? Oh,
This
no,
one?
137. That is Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu.
Oh, okay. Okay, Bhakti Rasamrita.
Yeah,
I'll just 1.2.137. Excellent. Thank you so much,
That's
Prabhuji.
from actual Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, yes.
Thank you. And the second one you said was obviously CC Madhya 1380, yeah? Gopi Bhartura Das Dasanudas verse.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact reference.
Yeah, that is the reference, CC Madhya 13.80. So Prabhuji, these two are, sorry, I missed it. Did you say they are Shuddhi verses, Bhuta Shuddhi?
Yeah, yes, they are Naham Vipronacha Narapati.
Yes.
That is part of the Bhuta Shuddhi.
Yeah.
There's also another verse. Normally I just say the English, I don't say the Sanskrit. Paraphrasing, I am an eternal servant of Krishna, but I forgot for so many millions of lifetimes. Now, by the mercy of my spiritual master, I am getting to. So that's in the deity worship book.
Yes, Prabhuji. And should we recite this every day?
Well, I do before I worship Giriraj and Sham the Shilas. Well, but we there's a little more procedure in that. But if you got deities and you and you do worship of the deities, yes, we do Bhuta Shuddhi, very simple Bhuta Shuddhi, only those 2 verses.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
I think this is for Brahmin initiated, right? But we can still recite if you are just Harinam initiated also.
Yeah, no problem. You can do that.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
The
That's
second
really
part
wonderful.
of Nyasa, there's Gayatri, but you wouldn't be able to do the.
No, that I can't. Yeah. So Prabhuji, it's very interesting today. This week only I was listening to some lectures and it said that the Sanskrit words, they have so many multiple meanings like Atma, Bhuta, then there are Karma. All these things have multiple meanings. And today when you were just talking about this Bhuta Shuddhi, I was just connecting the two, that there are multiple meanings, and that's why we need Acharya and Guru to explain, like you, that in what context that word is put in. We can't just, that's why we don't read it by ourselves. It's good to always follow, and because it could mean multiple things.
Yes, definitely both are there. In the Bhagavatam, there are verses which have multiple meanings.
Yeah.
And there's only Acharyas, but also in the Bhagavatam, there are words used in the Bhagavatam that have never been used in any other scripture ever before.
Yeah.
So that leaves us with the dilemma. If there's a word in the Bhagavatam that's been used that was never used in any other scripture, how would we know the meaning?
Yeah.
And the only way we can know the meaning is through the Acharyas.
Yes.
Therefore, having Guru and coming in Parampara is extremely important in the Vedic tradition.
Yes, Prabhuji. And then there is just quickly, there is this verse in Bhagavatam 4:20-47, Yai Ridrishi, that verse that says that if we think that we can ever repay our acharyas, then we know the patram, we are like jokers. We can never repay the acharyas for what so we have this a non-payable debt. And I thought that was so beautiful. I was just meditating on that all day, that how much we owe acharyas and the commentaries of Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita without these purports and commentaries. And then we need, like you, Vaishnavas to explain it to us. So we are so grateful. So thank you, Prabhuji. I have a non-repayable debt with you.
I'm like a parrot, Divya Gaurangi Mataji. Most of what I see, I just repeat from what I've heard. It's like I don't have much realizations myself.
There is realization, Prabhuji, definitely. I know, because it touches the heart. So thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Thank you for those words. Anyone else has got any reflections or comments?
Sorry, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. So the Buddha Suddhi, we recite the Chaitanya Charitamrita verse,
Yes.
and also the Achman, the names of the Lord that we do. That's in addition to that, isn't it? The Achman.
The Buddha Siddhi, if you just go back to that video I showed you, there's 2 mantras. There's 2 mantras. The one was the English one.
Yeah.
And then the second one was the one from Chaitanya Charitamrita, recited by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The Archaman and everything, that forms another part of it. That's not like, there's different parts of the deity worship. There's Bhuta Shuddhi, there's Nyasa, and there's lots of, the Archamans, like the preliminary.
Yes.
Deity worship it starts off the time you open your eyes in the morning.
In the morning, of course.
Before you even put your feet on the ground, there's so many mantras. By the time you go into the shower, there's so many mantras. By the time you come out of the showers and you put in tilak, there's so many mantras. Before you enter the deity puja, the room, there's so many mantras. And before putting the seat, there's so many mantras. Before you put your paraphernalia, each part, the bell, the conch, there's so many mantras.
So, but if we were doing just the basic one, like if I was adding the Buddhi Shuddhi, the Naham Vipro,
yes.
And if I add that, then I still do the Achman mantras.
Oh, yes. Like I do a very simple procedure for worshipping Giriraj. I do the Achamans.
Yes.
Then I purify all of the paraphernalias. And then I do the Bhuta Shuddhi. And then you do the 64 upachars, but I only do 16 upachars.
Okay.
And then after you're doing the upachars, then you do the worship of the Lord. And then you do the arti and then the naivedyam. We do simple.
Yes, simple. Okay. Thank
No,
you,
but
Prabhuji.
even in the simple procedures, Buddha Shuddhi is there. It's very important to purify the consciousness before we worship.
Yes, yes, very nice. Yes. And talking about gratefulness, I realized last week that we should be so grateful for the darshan that we have every morning, because for 2 days I couldn't take darshan of my deities because of my operation and the patches that they had put. And I thought, oh my God, how fortunate are we to have taking darshan of Radha Gokulanandan and our deities at home. You suddenly realize, you don't realize, you take it so much for granted that every morning you wake up, you take darshan, and suddenly when you actually can't take clear darshan of your deities, you realize how fortunate we are to
It's very
have.
true. I had the good fortune of going to Mangal Arati this morning, and then at 7 o'clock when we were taking darshan of Radha Gokulananda and CCC Taram Lakshman, I had the very, very same thought. How fortunate I am, or we are, how fortunate we are that with these eyes we can see the Lord.
Yes.
We are so fortunate. Thank
And
you.
all I was praying in those 2 days is, Lord, never take away those darshans away from me, because we are just so much mercy there, definitely. Thank you, Prabhuji. Wonderful.
Hare Krishna. Yes, Chandrika Mataji, I'll share the slides. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, no problem. Okay, thank you everyone for your attendance, your questions. Has anyone got any other questions or comments or reflections? No? All right. Thank you very much for